Yeah, Glenn went to jail that evening, and actually, if you remember correctly, that was the same year that we were all we almost got kicked out of the hotel because we were riding the ottomans down the stairs into the pool.
Yeah, we may not want to go into more depth. Wait a minute, it's been longer
Yeah,
than 7 years, so I guess
yeah,
we're
yeah,
legally good on that.
yeah.
So.
Well, that hotel's no longer there, so we're good.
What's up, guys? Brandon here, the Modified Rides podcast, bringing on a longtime friend of mine, someone I've known since high school. If only I could get into half of the stories from high school till now, but we'll kind of skip some of those and kind of hit the high points. Today we have Wes Frisbee. Many of y'all know him from the Negative Camber Club. So what's going on, Wes?
Nothing, man. Excited to be here. Just hanging out. We're going to talk about some old days, I'm sure.
Well, we are kind of old at this point. So to go back, Wes and I graduated high school together. I do remember when I had my CRX back in high school. Wes thought it would be funny walking through the school parking lot to set my alarm off with some other friends. Hit my windshield to set the alarm off and broke the windshield.
Yeah.
So that was one of those days back in the past. So we laugh about it today, but back then I was like, "What the hell happened to my windshield? How did it get broke sitting in a parking lot?" So yeah, like I said, Wes and I go back. Went to high school together. Was in Slam Impressions Car Club together for several years. He was the best man in my first wedding. I always joke and say it didn't work because he was my best man, but I went to high school with him and his wife. So I don't know how Trish puts up with him. So
Hey,
you want
you were
to explain how she
you
does?
were well, you were in my wedding too, so mine's still good.
I don't know how she puts up with you sometimes. If any of y'all have ever met Wes at a show, he's probably one of the most loud, funny. Like you can't keep a straight face around Wes. So I have no clue where this interview is going to wind up going. So
Yeah, it's hard. I think she's we always say we always married. I married up, she married way down.
well, as long as you can accept that, I guess that
Yep,
that's good.
yep.
So let's go back to the high school days. Uh, I bought my senior year, I bought my CRX, and I never knew where that was going to go and what was going to happen. Wes drove probably the coolest car in high school, and you want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, that '86 gold Ford Tempo. That was a chick getter. Had to beat the women off with a stick when we were riding in that thing. Uh, you know, it was funny because like it was a straight drive car, so I learned pretty quick that if I would dump the clutch, I could I could lift the front wheels off the ground and drag the bumper. So it would be nothing to be going through a parking lot somewhere and just dumping the clutch and this thing just hopping like it was on juice.
So, and what you didn't see until he rolled up was like, why is that thing covered in mud? He's like, oh, my cousin went off road, and I decided to take this Ford Tempo off road, and it's covered in mud like some beat up mud truck.
Yep. Yeah, those were the good days. But see, you got to bring back the sun. You can't always just start with the CRX.
I did have the '84 Sunbird that black windows in it, had the
Yep.
Cerwin Vegas in the trunk, so
Yep.
that kind of got me started in it. I bought that. Windows were blacked out back then. No one tinted the whole windshield, so we all had like that 15 inches of 5% across the windshield. You had to like lean to see out, but we got to start somewhere, and that's where I started and stepped to the CRX my senior year. And I don't think it was long after we graduated that you picked up your Nissan, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I bought that original standard cab. I had it for a while, and then let a guy drive it, one of the guys locally, and he got in an accident and totaled it. So that's when
Oh,
I got the King cab.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Dave, when
Dave
he
Lippert.
drove it to lunch one day and pulled out of
Yep.
a parking lot and totaled it. So yeah, I remember going to the junkyard, pulling some parts off of it before they scrapped it so you could
Yeah.
transfer to the new one. I forgot all
Yeah.
about that truck.
Yeah. So like we ended up with the red one, and we were all hanging out together, and everybody was starting to modify everything. And it's funny because I started out, I think it was lowered on air shocks with a set of 14-inch prime hammers.
Oh, I
You know,
remember the
then we
hammer.
then we went to Pathfinders, and then we decided to bag it. And when we
So to
bagged
step
it,
back, when you say Pathfinders, I don't think that's something that any of the younger generation knows. Back in the day, Pathfinders were one of the few Nissan Bolt pattern trucks that had a 16-inch wheel, and like they
but
didn't make a 16-inch wheel.
those were 15s, but they did the 16s that were Z71s.
Oh, that's right. So
Yeah,
so that's when they first started coming out with the 205/40 tires that was the
yeah.
smallest you could get back then tire wise, but it was also the biggest wheels we could get back then.
Well, and that was the only thing you could get them to tuck with, because the bed sides are so close to the axles and those things were out narrowing it. You had to go with something like that.
And no one back then narrowed it. Now you
Yeah,
bagged it first before you did
yeah,
everything else, right?
yeah. We had it bagged, and then after we did the bags, that's when we went back and we changed changed the suspension. Once we did the bags, we changed the wheels and then did the paint job and everything. And
That's when you went with
so
the TSW wheels.
yeah, I had the Kalahari's on it. It was one of the first trucks because it was a 6 lug wheel.
Now it was just bagged when you painted it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just.
I was thinking it was a body that you didn't body it till later though, did you?
We didn't body it till after it was shot for me trucking.
So you had it. Who was it that did the bags? Wasn't it Brad that did the bags on it?
Brad Madness, yeah.
What was the name of his shop?
I can't remember the name of it honestly.
Everybody here local went to him. He was
Yeah,
but that was before any of these big shops were bagging stuff. You had someone in their garage that was doing it, and
that's kind of him and his dad were doing it in their garage. This was before. I mean, this was still. I mean, everybody knew Jody Hall at the drop shop, but back then, I was like, there's no way I can afford that.
well, that was, let's see, 96 when you had it bagged,
Yeah,
95.
yeah, 96, 95, 96.
And then after you had it bagged, you had it painted, right?
Yeah, we did the paint job. Brad did the paint job. It was the red with the silver scallops going off the backside of it.
You kept the factory red, you just added the silver, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So if the truck sounds familiar, if you ever read Mini Trucking for like a 10-year stretch, he was on this subscription card for at least 10 years. Like I'd hate
Yeah.
to see how many subscription cards of that truck was printed.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool, to have that on, because not a lot of guys got that. I remember Randy Frederick when he had his green one was on the subscription cards for a while. That's what me and him always used to go around town about, because he said he was first. I said mine was longer.
I don't think there's anybody in the history of truck magazines, period, that's ever had a subscription card as long as you had.
Yeah, I don't think there was either. I mean, it was, you know, people were handing them to me years and years and years afterwards. Like, hey man, I got this in a magazine. I just thought you'd want it. I got to stack it home.
I think we got tired of seeing like you'd open it
Yeah.
up in the grocery store and then fall at me like, damn, Wes's truck again.
Yep. Yep.
So I guess to go back to where that subscription card in Mini Trucking Magazine came from, we'll go back to that was Mini Nats 98.
8.
Yeah, Mini Nats 98. So me and Wes were both in Slam Impressions. It was a local, to Asheville, North Carolina, local club. We used to roll 15, 20 deep every time we'd go to a show. Like that was Slam Impressions was to us was a pretty big deal back then. We had the local club. We had the meetings once a week or every other week or whatever it was. We'd be at somebody's house wrapping tweed door panels or wrapping a dash. Like everybody had tweed and everybody taught ourselves how to do it. It may not have been the best wrap jobs in the world, but tweed was so cheap back then at $3.99 a yard. You could redo it if you didn't like it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I remember we were at Mini Nats. What do we say? 98.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mini Nats 98. And every time I drive through Pigeon Forge, that was during the heyday of Mini Nats in Pigeon Forge. We were all staying at the Ramada. The whole club had the Ramada. We talked the front desk to let us use the hose. We were washing vehicles in the parking lot, even though we weren't supposed to. They still let us do it. And I remember Saturday after the show, most of us gone back to the hotel. We were waiting on everybody to show up. We were piled up in somebody's room, like watching TV. There's probably 20 of us just hanging out in the room, waiting to go to dinner. I was like, man, Wes and Sean are just not here. Like, I guess they decided to go somewhere else. And then Wes called the room. So this was before cell phones. This was before, all that. So he called the actual hotel room and said, hey, you guys go ahead and go eat without me. I'm getting my truck shot for mini trucking. And we was like, yeah, whatever. We hung up the phone, and I remember the room was quiet for a couple minutes, and somebody's like, I call bullshit. Wes is always joking. There's no way that truck's getting shot for mini trucking. There's no way. And after a couple of minutes, I think it was Corey that stood up and was like, Wes sounded serious. Maybe we need to go check this out and see if it was legit. So we all piled up, went down to where he's getting shot, and lo enough, he was there with, Lance Martz and Courtney shooting it.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool deal because like it was the first one. It was the first one of us to kind of get any kind of magazine coverage.
Notoriety, yeah.
And I remember walking up and Lance was leaning in the truck, and I walked up and I asked him. I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Is this your truck?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm Lance Marks, and we want to shoot this for mini truck." Well, I'm just like everybody else, you know the flaws and you know everything about the truck. And I'm like, "You want to shoot this one?" And he's like, "Yeah, we want to shoot it." He said, "Courtney saw you driving down the strip last night, and he's like, man, we got to shoot that truck." So I was like, okay, here we go. So he gave me the tech article, and we started filling it out, and then that's when we went across the street and started to have them shoot it. And that was the first time I'd ever met Lance and ever met Courtney. That's where mine and Courtney's friendship started.
They were also shooting. Who owned the Ranger at the time? Didn't the square body Jody's Ranger with the shell, wasn't it shot at the same time?
Yeah, they were shooting that one, and then they were shooting also that one Civic. That was the first car that they did.
Brett Habib.
Same weekend. Yeah, the Civic that had the hydro air shaft airbags on.
Yeah, had hydraulics in the wheel wells, but had airbags that pushed the hydraulic fluid into it. So it wasn't hydraulic. It was air ride in the trunk. It was a crazy setup. Yeah, but we all piled up. We went down and, realized that Wes was serious because Wes is a jokester. So he was like, oh, he's joking with us. There's no way this is happening. And then we all showed up, started grabbing rags and cleaning under the hood. So if you knew Wes back then, you knew under his hood was nowhere near photo worthy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if under his hood has ever been that clean since that day.
I don't know. It's pretty clean since you cleaned it to take it to LSD this weekend.
So. Well, so we hung out and did that. And like I said, that's where Courtney, and Lance, and at the time as a quote unquote mini trucker back in the late 90s like that, to have Lance and Courtney come up and shoot your stuff, like they were royalty to us. They were like the elite. They were the best of the best. And to have them to even talk to someone in your group was just insane. And then, like I said, they grabbed Wes's truck and pulled it to shoot. So
yeah, and it was nice to see because it kind of, it kind of opened the door for, like I said, my friendship with Courtney. Just to really realize that how important the people are around you. Because nobody had to come help; they just did. You guys didn't have to come help me. I'll never forget Sean with his head in the hood, and I'm like, dude, it's clean enough. He's like, no, it's got to be better. It's got to be better. And he just wouldn't stop. So finally, I just almost shut the hood on him.
But none of us at that point had ever been, like, we knew people that had been shot for a magazine, but none of us had even been close to that. So you were the first one to know how that felt. Like, you could probably still replay it in your mind right now that, hey, I want to shoot your truck. That feeling, that almost that gut drop, like, okay, I'm somebody now.
Yeah, because, that's what we all, trophies are nice, and we want the notoriety of that. But I think once you see your vehicle in print, it just weighs more, you know.
I think that was the year that we got called, that Charlie Cobble called the club out at awards about the most ticketed club, permitting vehicle to come in contact with pavement. Glenn bounced on the truck, hydraulics. We had multiple stereo tickets. Didn't
Yeah.
someone go to jail that evening or that year?
Yeah, Glenn went to jail that evening, and actually, if you remember correctly, that was the same year that we were all we almost got kicked out of the hotel because we were riding the ottomans down the stairs into the pool.
Yeah, we may not want to go into more depth. Wait a minute, it's been longer
Yeah,
than 7 years, so I guess
yeah,
we're
yeah,
legally good on that.
yeah. Well, that hotel's no longer there, so we're good.
So. I remember Wes walking into the jail to bail friends out, and with the big camcorder on his shoulder with the full VHS tape, trying to walk
Yep.
through the police station recording. So yeah, there was a lot of cutting up back then, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. I guess it was the next morning after yours got shot. Didn't that where Jason Rice's got shot? Wasn't it the same year? Didn't Courtney shoot it the next morning?
Can't remember when Courtney shot his, but I know that's also. I mean, yours was pretty close after that.
Well, that was when, we talked to Courtney and
Yeah,
Lance, and they were both like, hey, it's kind of on the hush right now, but we're going to start running one car a month in mini trucking.
yeah,
Because at the time, there really wasn't a mini truck inspired magazine for cars like mine that had the Tweed and the billet and all that
yeah,
stuff. So then Courtney, see, that was in July, because that was always what, July 4th weekend?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then Courtney shot mine at Nope in August or September, whatever. I think
September. Yeah,
September, yeah. He shot
yeah,
my TRX then. So Wes has come out. That would have to be April 99 mini trucking, because mine and Jason Ross's features come out in the May 99. So it was the
yeah,
month after Wes's, but then Wes's was still in our issue because of the subscription card.
yeah. And and then that was kind of the turning point too, to realize, I wanted to change it. You know, I wanted to see if we could do something different with it. So, that's when we started to make plans to completely overhaul the truck.
How long after the feature shoot until you bodied it and changed it up?
Actually, as a matter of fact, when the feature came out, it was at Jody Hall's.
Oh, that's right. I
Because it
forgot
went,
Jody did the
yeah,
body drop on it.
yeah. Jody did the body drop. Jody did the back half. John Yoakum, uh, out of the Tennessee chapter, he did the 5 lug conversion for me. I got some axles. I got some axles from Brian Brubaker. Because Brian was always hoarding Nissan parts back then. And then, that's how the conversation started to try to get into Canberra. Because I wanted to, just always looked up to those guys. It's like every time you opened up a magazine, you saw all these guys. It's not that still enjoyed being a part of Slam Impressions, but just wanted something a little different.
At the time, the Camber, Relaxed, those guys like that, Severed, they were the national stuff. We were local, even though
Local.
in our area we probably had some of the best around. But
Yeah,
I think that's when several of us wanted more. We wanted to do
yeah,
something that was on a national level. And it was what, you and Mike Rash left and went to Camber,
yep,
and me and Chris Tryon and a couple other people left and went to Relaxed about the same time.
yeah, yeah. So I started talking to Brian Brubaker, you know, and got a hold of him, and we started talking, and he kind of pointed me in the right direction as to what to do. Back then it was a little bit different. It's not like it is today. I mean, we're just like everybody else. I think things need to change. Way the way things are built these days, is different. Back then it had to be fully done.
Yeah.
You know, um, and so we did. The Jody Hall did the body drop, and then after the body drop was done, we switched the wheels to a set of 18-inch VX1s, which don't think anybody had a set of 18s on a Nissan at the time.
That is equivalent of putting a 28 on a full size now. Like back in
Yeah,
99 and 18, hell, I have my 17s. And everybody's like, oh my God, how did you fit 17s? And it's like, then West steps up to 18s, but
yeah,
things were
yeah.
a
And
lot
that was
different then.
yeah, and then like we did a complete color change on it, and
Who painted it?
Mike Hensley.
Oh, that is right. Mike did paint it.
Yeah,
And that was a Volkswagen blue?
no, it was that 2000 Honda Si Electron Blue Pearl.
That's right.
Yeah, so he did the paint job, and then we talked to I talked to Brian some more. Um, got Chris Schmidt to look at it. Chris Schmidt said, really loved the truck. Said that the only thing it needed was an interior at the time. And he's like, you get an interior in it, you should be good.
Well, then back then it was tweed. People weren't doing
Yeah,
leather and suede and all this custom molded stuff. It was you go to your local fabric store and you buy however many yards of tweed that people were using for couches, and that was what your
yeah,
interior was. My CRX was the floor, the headliner, the dash, everything was tweed. But I had my dash, I paid somebody to wrap it, where Wes's was wrapped in, I guess that was Mini Nats 99.
yeah. So that was '99. Yeah, because it was funny because me and you were talking about it the other day, and I completely forgot about it. I completely forgot about us in that
No, it
hotel.
had to be 2000 because Christine was
Yeah, it was
pregnant.
2000. Yeah,
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 because she was
yeah,
7 months pregnant at the time. And we're in Wes's hotel room with some Super 77, glue from Lowe's and a roll of tweed, wrapping his dash in the hotel room, wrapping door panels, 3 a.m, just so he could see if he could get that negative camber logo.
yeah. And we ended up on that Saturday. Uh, Courtney came up, and he was with Brian. And Courtney's like, I can't believe you changed this truck in a short amount of time. I was like, I had a goal. I wanted to see if I could make it. And he's like, so what has Chris said? And I said, well, Chris said, it's got to have an interior in it. He kind of looked down. And he said, well, got an interior in it. Reaches in his back pocket and pulls out the logo and puts the logo on the back window. So, like I said, there's so many cool stories about that come out of all this stuff, and that was one of them. To getting him to logo it.
But back, for us back then, people like Courtney and Lance, and Brian McCormick, these magazine guys were the top notch people. Like they were the ones
Yeah,
that made that decision whether you got in that magazine or whatnot. And that's kind of where I got into the magazine stuff myself. And when Courtney shot mine and 98 for mini trucking, and then it got shot for lowrider in 99, I started
mm-hmm.
seeing that this is okay. Well, I know some of these magazine guys. I know how this process works. That's when I wanted to start shooting for a magazine. Now, if we would have had direct access to the editors back in the day when we were putting our show on for Slam Impressions, I mean, things would have been, you never know how things would have gone back then.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we did that show for several years at the mall. And it's just a local mall show, Spring Slam. That was at least 3 or 4 years that was done.
Yeah, and it seemed like it got bigger and bigger every year, which was always good.
Well, it's like, so I guess the 2000 time was when you left. A couple of us left to go to Relaxed Atmosphere. We still kind of hung out, but we were hitting bigger shows with bigger crowds at that time. Wasn't saying that the local crew wasn't good enough. It was just we wanted more. We realized then that we wanted more in the automotive scene.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like I said, and it's kind of funny that like the club, the local clubs have pretty much, I mean, in all reality, have dissipated all over the country. And everybody's moved on to bigger groups. And so it was just a kind of the natural life progression.
But
we started earlier.
Back then we were, out of high school and we were, 20, 22 or whatever, and we were going to shows. Our whole circle was that same age group. Well, then people got, big boy jobs and they got wives and kids, and everybody kind of stepped away from a lot of it. There's only a handful of us in town locally that never stopped. There's some people that left for a little while, come back, left again, come back, but there's only a handful of us that just never stopped. Wes got into golf there for a little bit. He tried to be Tiger Woods for a couple of years and realized that he didn't have the swing down. So
I don't have them genetics.
But Wes got rid of the truck you kept it for a couple of years.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. You probably got probably 2002.
Yeah,
I would guess.
You kept it a couple of years and showed it pretty good.
Yeah, probably around 2002, and then that's when I bought the other red king cab from Paul Beaver. Because
already had juice on it.
Yeah, because he had that one that that was the one that was juiced with 18-inch Colorado rushes. There's another thing. Like nobody around here ever had a set of wheels like that till Paul bought them.
And I know I followed him down the road many a times, and with the hydraulics back in the early 2000s without the actuators and that, it rode like a little red wagon. I mean, you'd watch all four wheels come off the ground going across a bridge, but we loved it. That was the coolest thing. I mean, my kidneys couldn't handle it now.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd be in traction for months.
So
those were cool days.
I forgot you bought Paul's truck. Now you kept it for a little while, didn't you?
Yeah, so I kept it for a little while, and then we decided one weekend we wanted to see if we could do a body drop in a weekend. So me and Sean Contrell, and everybody knows Robbie Welcher, and
Pebble Pushers,
Rodney Owens from Pebble Pushers. They came up, and we started on a late Friday night, and by Sunday morning they left, and the truck was on the ground on the rockers. So we did that one, and then had it for a while, and then like everything else, I keep it for a little while, then I move on.
You wound up selling it to somebody in Pebble Pushers, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. Honestly, I can't even remember his real name, but they called him Schoolboy. Was his name? He had it for a while, and now James White has it.
Oh, is that who? Which one is it?
So it still looks kind of the same way. I think he bought it. Him and his son bought it together. It was actually in a salvage yard down there, and he bought it.
Does it still have the shell on it?
No, it don't have the shell on it, but it's still red. I think it's got some black fenders on it, maybe. They talked about redoing it, wanting to bring it out again, but it's still bodied and everything.
And when he says James White, that's the hashtag mini movement. He's probably got 10 Nissans that he's collecting at this point.
He's probably got more than that. He just won't tell everybody.
I know. I did the shop tour a couple years ago, and he has a building behind his building that he keeps the stuff in. So he seems to collect Nissan. I didn't realize he had that. So it's cool to see that was still running around. What happened to your blue one though? Is it still?
So the blue one, when Camber did their 25th anniversary at LST, I actually went to try to buy it so that I could redo it and make sure do it back the same way, wheels, and take it to LST, and it was just too far gone.
Well, I remember stories of, because back then, me and Wes both would run a scuba tank. We didn't have tanks and compressors. You'd have to go to the scuba shop, have the tank filled. If you run out of air on a weekend, you couldn't get the tank filled. Like, you were just out of air. I remember there's stories of the guy that bought it driving around with it on the rockers, just driving it because he didn't have air.
Yeah, well, like somewhere along the lines, and I'm sure you got it somewhere, but remember the video of us coming back from somewhere down in Charlotte, maybe Fayetteville, and Robbie was in the Isuzu and I was in the Nissan, and you were hanging out the window in your car videoing us, and we laid them out going down the interstate. I drug through the wiring harness and shut the truck off, and Rodney drug through the gas tank and almost set the whole interstate on fire.
Yep, both on the side of the road. One, you with no power because your wires are burned through, and him leaking gas down the side of I-85 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Those guys rolling to them with shows. you'd have half the pebble pushers with trailers, the trucks laid out on the trailers running 100. And I'm like, I can't even keep up. And they're towing running that fast.
Yeah, but that hasn't changed. I mean, that's how we're probably going to be going to Texas next weekend or this weekend.
Well, see, you're towing and I'm driving, so I just got to watch out for I-10 and all the dang potholes and crap on I-10. Last time I took a car down there, we wound up breaking a couple TPMS sensors in the Subaru because I-10 is not the friendliest road out there.
Yeah, especially when you get in on the other side of Louisiana, it's pretty gnarly.
So you sold the blue truck, which was the red and silver one. You
Mm-hmm.
sold that, and then you bought Paul's red one, and you sold
Yep.
it. So how long did you go from that to you bought Charlie Brown?
So we went for a while and didn't have anything, and then went. I can't remember where we went to. Hadn't been around anybody in a while. Just kind of took a break and went to went to a show, and that's when I got the bug back again, and we built the C10.
Oh, I forgot
The,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Logan Ollis has, which he's done phenomenal things with that thing. I mean, he took it to a place it needed to go to. But so in 17, yeah, 17 was when I slipped and fell coming out of the truck at US Foods, and uh, after they cashed me out, I bought Charlie Brown from Doug Hanks. He had done phenomenal work on it. He was just at the point where he was ready to move on, And that truck is such a driver. I mean, I can't say enough about Robert Robinson and his staff at Auto Extremes. I mean, those guys build everything to drive.
For those that don't know, what year truck was that?
So that was an 05. It was a
That
05 Cadillac, crew cab. It was rebuild colored, and bodied on 26s.
and it didn't have any interior when you got it, did it?
No, so it had no interior. So we took the Matt at Charm City Upholstery in Baltimore, Maryland, did the seats, and then Eric Folber did the interior, which everybody knows Eric Folber pretty good, especially now with what they did with Randy's Ballistic 2.
Randy
Two
mentioned him
Ballistic.
about 17 times a day, so
Yeah, yeah. Eric's a good guy. And then Chris Rollins, Chris Rollins is always going to be my go-to stereo guy. Chris does an amazing job on anything he does. I can't say enough about how good his work is.
yeah, he's done a few things that I've shot lately that's had his interior jobs in them.
Yeah. So we did that, did the interior, and drove it for a while, and then in October of 21, I guess, 21. John Jackson shot it for Street Trucks, and then after that, it sat for about 4 months, and then I put a random post out that said, "Anybody want to bring me 45K and take it home?" And a guy named Chris from Arizona brought me a check to LST and took the truck home.
That was the one truck that I had behind Cranberry. When I built Cranberry, I wanted to be able to tow with it. And it's just everybody drove their stuff or had their own stuff. And we went to the drop-in show that one time, and I wanted photos and videos of it towing, but it was dark when we went and dark when we come home.
Yep.
The only video we have is it in the parking lot, but to throw that crew cab on 26s behind my crew cab on 26s like that was one of the cool parts of owning Cranberry, is having those two trucks together. And what the funny part was is the year Wes got his Canberra logo at Pigeon Forge at Mini Nats, it was my CRX and his Nissan parked together. So here we are, 10 years later? No, 20 years later, still, parked, still side by side at a show. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was it was neat to see, because I mean, I remember going down and back, just people driving by and just looking like, what are they doing?
You can't
You
tow
know?
a truck that's bagged. Well, yeah, I can. And
Yeah,
that's when I have my little baby tires on there. I didn't even have my 40s. That was the
yeah,
30530s, little stretch tires on a 12-inch wide wheel in the back, and
yeah,
we rolled.
yeah. It was a fun trip. You know, which John Beebe always does a good job doing. It was a fun time to go because that's one of the only times that it ever worked out schedule wise for me to make that show.
Well, it always fell right before SEMA for me, so I was always crunch time, and I never could take the weekend off before I left for SEMA to go because I was always finalizing parts, and that had to be 2020 because that was the
Yeah,
year that they didn't have SEMA. So it's like, well, I don't have a SEMA crunch, so let's go to a show.
yeah,
COVID had shut everything down forever, so that's when people were like, all right, we're allowed to go outside now. Cool, let's go outside and go to a show.
yeah. That was a fun weekend. Like I said, just get it, not having cares. Not worry about where we were going and what we had to do. Just kind of, just like you said, it was right around after during COVID. It was just nice to get a piece of reality back.
I can't believe I forgot about the square body C10. So going back when me and Wes was in Slam Impressions, there was 4 or 5 of us that lived in the same neighborhood back in, we called it the Slammed Hill because it was Slam Impressions. Like
Yeah,
we hung out at each other's houses. Well, then fast forward, 15 years later, I wound up building a house in the same neighborhood Wes lived in at the time. So since then, he's become bougie and moved out on us. He's Mister got the pool in the backyard, trying to keep the wife and kid happy. So
keep the kid happy. That's the big thing.
I guess you figure with the pool in the backyard, you ain't got to pay to send her nowhere. So it's probably cheaper on you to have that in the backyard.
It is. It is. Plus, I can keep. I know everybody wants to be here during the summertime, so it's kind of nice to have all the kids around here.
Yeah. But it was just cool that we were, several years apart. We were both still in the same neighborhood across town. So
Yeah,
I got there for a
yeah,
while. There were several of us lived in this neighborhood at the same time that were in our original club back in the day.
yeah. Well, it just goes to show you that life comes full circle for a lot of us. And it's nice to see too that we still have the friendships with the guys that are no longer doing the same stuff we're doing, but are still friends. Working on working on Project Starfish at your house, and Paul coming over to help out.
Yep.
Paul don't have a truck. He's not interested in showing anything. He still goes to shows, still hangs out. He's over in
I get that
the
random
garage.
phone call. Like I won't hear from him for a while, and I get a call. I'm like, "Oh, it's Paul's." Like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You at home?" I'm like, "Yeah." "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm in the garage." "Well, I'm standing outside," and I'm like, "Okay, well, come on in." Didn't know
Yeah,
you were out in my driveway, so come by and turn some wrenches and help like the old days. But But then you
yeah,
got people like Corey that was in the club back in the day that now works for a pretty big Bronco company. He's still working around modified vehicles, but he's
yeah,
doing the off road thing now.
yeah. He's in what, Texas, I think it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. They're running a
Bronco rodeo or whatever it is down there.
Yeah.
So after you sold Charlie Brown, though, I think you regretted it right off the bat because you didn't have something fun to play with.
Man, I will always. Me and Doug talk about this almost every time we're together. How much he regrets selling it to me, and how much I regret selling it. It got to the point where for me, and it was all in my subconscious. It was just too nice for me to drive.
You're scared to spill something in it or scratch it or
Yeah, and but it's so funny because the guy that I sold it to in Arizona was driving it back and forth from LA to Phoenix all the time.
that's not a short drive either.
No, no. So, and Robert drove it everywhere. As a matter of fact, right before I bought it, we had drove it to Slamfest and back. So that truck was everywhere. It'd been to Texas a couple of times. It was just everything that Robert builds is our drivers.
Well, you won what best interior a couple times with it for the short time you had it finished.
Yeah, yeah, and like the couple best interiors, and then it was really cool to get kind of to cross a bucket list one off my list was the 10th anniversary at LST. to get one of the top 100s there. That was because Lonnie and Radar do such a great job. I'm so excited for next weekend. Uh, not only just because they're in the club, but they're just two great guys.
Yeah.
And they got a great staff with Crystal helping out, and Daniel's big head and the guy down in the park running security.
And that's the thing, though, is even without a vehicle, like, people like me and Wes, we still go to these shows. It's nothing to
Yeah,
hop and drive 16 hours and go somewhere, or drive 10 or 12 hours. So with, the drive, stopping and getting fuel and all that, our drive is probably about 16 hours. Of course, this will come out after LST, but like our drive
yeah,
is 16 hours. And it's hard to do that a lot because you can't get off work for multiple days at a time. It's not like you can drive down in one day, go to the show the next, and come home. It's just too
yeah.
far. But there's so many friends from all over the country that come together that, we'll get to see when we're at these big events like that.
And like me and you were talking earlier, just the road trip aspect of it, just getting a group of people in the car and going, we were fortunate enough. It wasn't last year; it was the year before. But when Canberra did their 30th, they did it at Slamboree in Oklahoma. Man, me and Trish and Sean and his wife Jenna, piled up in my Sierra and drove straight out there and come back. So that's the fun part of it. To get to see the country and get to experience things with people that you don't always get to do. It was such a good time.
That's kind of what, when Mitchell rode to SEMA with me in 23, he'd never been that far west, other
Yeah.
than in a plane. So to see that stuff, and I'm like, hey, I've done the Grand Canyon, I've done some Route 66 stuff. It's like, you haven't. I'm like, it's up to you. Do you want to stop? And he was like, absolutely. I never thought I'd get to do this. And, it's just, you never know what opportunities you're going to get traveling. Like, we stopped by, New Orleans one year going to LST. I'd
Mm-hmm.
never been. And it's like, I made the mistake of driving a big lifted truck on 40s through there, and you can't park it anywhere, don't fit in any parking lots. That was the wrong vehicle to take there, but it was still cool to go with a group of friends and go do that. So
Yeah, and it's fun when you can get a group of people, like we, you know, getting to go to Dino's this year with me and Sean and Vince Robinson. He went with us. He's my glass guy at the body shop I work at. I run a collision center here in town, Joe Hudson Collision Center, and Vince was my estimator, and now he's my glass guy. But we've known him ever since we were in the
30
local
years.
clubs. Yeah, he was in Low Descents here in town, so we hopped on a plane and went to Dino's.
Or like
You
for
know,
LSD, we have a, Airbnb, and there's 8 of us going down. And,
yep,
my wife got down and figured out what houses we can look at and sending everything out. And Wes pretty much picked the house we're staying at. He said it had a pool he could pee in, so that would be all he needed. So
streaking through the quad.
you realize there'll be video cameras and stuff for that, right?
Yeah, we'll try to keep that one PG. But another one that comes to mind realistically was, unfortunately, I didn't get to go to Courtney's funeral, and I'll probably always regret that one after he passed. But we did a memorial for Alex Anderson, and anybody knows Alex was a great guy.
No,
Alex was
Alex, who?
Anderson. Yeah, yeah, Alex who, um, you know, such a such a character, larger in life, and they did a memorial at West Coast Customs. So we flew out, me and Sean, and we get out there and we get a we get a van, and we're going with the guys from New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, it was Val and Duck and Kevin Holland and Brad Rupert and um, Val's girlfriend Micah, and we just drove around seeing the sights of LA. We ended up all the way down in Huntington Beach. We did the Fast and Furious tour.
The
Had to
house and the
stop
store.
stop by the tuna no crust shop.
Most people don't realize they're literally 200 yards between the house and the store. The movie don't relay that, but in real life,
Yeah,
you can walk, like, stand in the driveway of the house and look at the store.
yeah, and it was crazy too because there was actually a guy that had a bagged Civic sitting out front. He lived right across the street from the house, so it was like it was meant to be there.
Well, that time me and Kristen went, it was right when the Supers come back, and I remember there was like 3 or 4 Supers pulled up as we were there taking pictures, trying to get, somebody lives in the house, like they have
Yeah,
signs and all that, but someone lives in the house, but these car guys still go and park in front of the house and take pictures. So
yeah,
just like
that
coming
was
back from SEMA, we stopped at the Breaking Bad house, and they've got it fenced off and signs, and that mean old lady sits out front and yells at you if you stop to take pictures. And it's like, you knew the house you were buying. Like, take advantage of it. Don't sit outside and be pissy with everybody.
yeah, yeah. Like you think about like all those times where like everybody used to go, and those times are kind of, like you said, they're kind of gone now, where it's just a few of us going, But I love the road trips. I always have.
I miss the days where we would roll 15, 20 vehicles deep. We'd meet at
Yeah,
McDonald's at like 5 in the morning. We'd roll out, we'd play all the club games, then roll back. Someone would always lose a wheel. I think Paul lost one on the wagon. Who was it?
Josh
Uh,
Josh Gant lost one
yeah,
on his Nissan.
going to Pigeon Forge. Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's been some mishaps, but when you got 15, 20 vehicles, someone has a jack, someone has a tool, like
yeah, you
someone
fix it and
helped.
go.
So
Yeah, yeah, and like I mean, I remember, you know, one of the we used to always go every year to Slam Fest, and when we would go to Slam Fest, we'd meet the Maryland guys. Back then it was Chad Gill and Brian McCormick and Clint Vito, and we had this one guy out there. His name was Tim. We always called him Tight Shirt Tim because he wore like a medium all the time. And he drove a regular stock body Toyota. So he's like 6'4" and 250 pounds of muscle, and he's all just crawled up in it like this. And Kevin Ferry, like we're coming back and we're running 100 down the interstate, and Kevin's chucking M80s out the roof of the truck, out the roof of his truck at everybody. It's just stuff you can't stuff if you did now, it'd be like, oh my god. So luckily there was a lot of stuff that we did. Thankfully there wasn't a camera in everybody's pocket like there is
social
now.
media, yeah. Um, we will say that we are all glad that there was not social media in some of Wes's younger days. Those that know Wes know what I'm talking about, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of metal on glass sound that you would hear, so
Yep. Yep.
that we'll leave it at that. But glad there was not social media back then.
Yeah, because I'd hate, I got an 11-year-old daughter now, and I don't want to have to explain any of that to her. You know, you it's hard enough to explain the frosted tips and the bleach blonde hair and the black hair with the blue highlights when she sees it in photos. She's seen me with no hair ever since she was born.
So y'all that know Wes now, you see the bald head, the beard, like that's Wes. Where everybody knows Wes. I knew Wes with the mullet and the bush hog
yep,
hat. I knew him with the Eminem bleach blonde hair with the tongue ring.
yep.
Like I said, the jet black hair. So like my daughter was looking through, she's 23 now. She was looking through some pictures a while back. She's like, who is that? I'm like, that's Wes. And she's like, that's not Wes. I'm like, I promise you, that's Wes. She's like, with white hair? I'm like, yep.
And that's another one that's so cool to see. Like, I mean, known her since she was a baby, and now she's a grown woman and doing fantastic in life. Because she's always been beautiful. You know, it's just it's just to see her so full of life and just enjoying everything. It's nice to see when and like Jason and Reagan with their kids. I mean,
In the
Paul and
scene
Amy,
now.
Paul and Amy with their kids. It's just it's great to see the kids, the younger generation coming up. And I think it's also nice to see them invested in it because once we're gone, it's changing. It's definitely getting more expensive to be a part of this, but it's nice to see that there's still a younger generation coming behind us that want to at least try to do their best to keep things going.
And that was one thing I liked when you sold Charlie Brown. You went to buy this new Sierra that you have now. You wanted something that was still a 4-door, that you
Yep.
could still throw your wife, your daughter, and go to a show. You didn't want a standard cab or a little mini truck that y'all couldn't go together. You
Yeah.
wanted to keep that show experience family, and I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah. It was funny when we picked a Sierra up. We're in the dealership down there in Charlotte, and the lady's like, "Man, you got a really nice truck. I hope you enjoy it." And Emery looks over to the lady and is like, "He's going to ruin this thing." And now, here we go. It's bagged on so 26s. So, you know, Kevin Holland and Mark Barcelona did a great job on it for me down there in New Orleans. So, we'll be loading it up tomorrow to make a trip to Texas. We'll be inside the US Mags booth this year. So that's a first for me. I got to talk to Chris from US Mags at Dino's and kind of set this up. So it's kind of cool to be on that side of it.
And what Wes is leaving out about the wheels, most people buy wheels that fit their truck. Wes bought
Yeah.
wheels, it was a good deal. And then come to find out he had to narrow the rear end and do a bunch of new stuff to his suspension to make the wheels fit. I'm like, dude, it would have been cheaper just to buy the right set of wheels.
It probably would have, but I don't do anything easily. That's the problem, because I remember Robert Robinson. He was so funny about it. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "You sure those are going to fit?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, they're going to fit. Don't worry about it." I was like, "I know," because the ones I had on it were infamous concaves, and I thought they concaved out at about 6.5. It had 6 inches of lip. I was like, "Well, they'll fit." Well, these new ones have 8. I get them home, and I'm like, "They don't fit." So I called Robert, and I said, "Robert," I got to bring it back to you. And he goes, "Why?" I go, "These wheels don't fit." He said, "I told you they wouldn't fit." I said, "Well, I thought they would." So, he was good enough to get it in, get it narrowed. That was a nice $3,800 lesson to
Like I said, you ordered a set of custom wheels for
yeah.
probably cheaper than what you have in those now.
Yeah, so it's always a good idea to measure about 6 times before you commit. But
So if you see Wes and you see him in his truck, just be like, man, those wheels fit so good on this truck.
they should. They should have been gold plated for this.
Well, I know
But
you talk back and forth like, hey, should I sell this and do something else? And it's like you'll miss it. You'll want something else to play with.
yeah, we were joking about it. I kept saying, I have good luck in Texas, so I'll just stick a sign in this one and you know see what to buy. And like, what are you going to buy? I'm like, well, I'll do another mini truck. And they're like, well, you can do another mini truck. I'm like, have you seen the prices of mini trucks?
Yeah.
I got to sell my full size to do that.
Well, half the ones when I shoot stuff for Dwayne for Meekum, you see these stock, 20,000 mile Nissan hard bodies come across and they're like 20 grand. You're like, how? That's a $3,000 truck all day long, but not anymore. If you can find one that's rust free and clean, man, they get expensive quick.
Yeah, and I've wore James White out about getting that red one back, but he won't come off of it. So,
I'm sure for the right amount of money he would, but it's probably not the money you're going to want to spend on it.
yeah, yeah. It's still got some nostalgia though. So
I mean, I'll sell you another Sierra if you want another Sierra.
I got a Silverado and a Sierra, so I think I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the GM cars for now.
It's funny because I went from everything Asian to everything European. Now everything in my driveway is all American. It's like it's weird. I go in these waves like this. So,
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, you always have a knack of doing something that's cool. I think a lot of times, I think a lot of times you get grief because everybody seems to think that you have to bag and body everything. You have to cut full suspension out of it. We do all this. That's not always the case. Cool can be cool no matter what you do.
yeah.
I think some people need to realize that just because it's not their style doesn't mean it's not cool.
And if you pay a shop to do it, do the work to it. Or don't make it less cool either because I didn't do it myself. I know my limits. I mean, hell, Wes runs a body shop. Are you going to paint something?
Nope. That's why
I mean,
Dustin Maben did it.
I mean, I've seen you attempt welding a couple times, but are you going to weld a frame up?
I mean, yeah, I'm the same way. I know my limits, and the other thing is, everybody always says, well, it says, built not bought. That's the other thing that always gets me when people say that, because nothing is 100% built. Or,
Nope.
I mean, you're buying something, so you can't say built not bought, because unless you're hand forming tires in the garage, or you're hand forming wheels, and every suspension component from start to finish is 100% handmade. You're buying something.
Yep, you're buying a 4-link, you're buying a back bracket. You're not getting it like a model car where it's all these parts stuck on a little plastic thing you break off. Like you're
Yeah,
still, what at the end of the day, as long as if you're into the modified rides like that and you modify it, regardless if it's lifted, lowered, a low rider with the wire wheels and all that, or if it's a donk or whatever, as long as you're modifying and enjoying it, it's like a lot of people hate the squatted aspect. I personally can't stand it, but then you sit back and look at some of these kids, they're still modifying their vehicle. That's what we did at 17, 18 years old. They
yeah,
looked at us like we were stupid. Why are you going to take a Honda and rip the interior and redo it? Why are you going to take a Nissan and cut the suspension out of it? Like we
yeah,
were looked down upon like these kids are, but they're still passionate about it. So you can't fault any of them.
yeah. And that's one of the ones that I don't agree with. I'm like you. I also don't particularly care for the stance cars. That are ridiculously stance. But when you look at my truck, it's ridiculously
Yep.
big
Those
wheels, and stuffed up underneath the fender.
those stance kids are the ones like I remember we were pulling out of SEMA in 19 in Cranberry, and there's two guys walking down the sidewalk. It's like, man, those wheels should have got a better fitment. It's like, you realize they touched the inside of my fender, right? They can't stick out anymore, but
Yeah,
they don't understand the truck world. Just like, I mean, I understand the negative camber deal when it comes to like these stance cars, but I don't see you running 30 degrees of camber just to get a wheel to fit like that. But those guys are going to look at our trucks and be like, well, that's weird because it shouldn't fit like that.
yeah, and it's somebody thinking, hey, how can I get this to do what I want it to do? At
Yep.
the end of the day, it takes ingenuity, it takes time, it takes effort. It may not be, like you said, it may not be what we like, but from, I mean, the '80s graphics are coming back.
Yep.
Personally, that's not my thing, but to see some of these guys lay it out, it's like, how does your mind think that? I'm always fascinated by how people's minds work, and then how they can take something in their mind and be able to turn it into something.
Well, look at these people
Whether,
like Eddie Gordy that does all like the bead roll and stuff. Like, how does he know that's how that's going to come out? I couldn't tell you.
yeah, yeah, like we were talking about Chris, like I was with Chris this weekend. We redid my box for LST, because we had to change some things on it, but like just watching him work, you know, watching how his mind works, it was amazing to me, you know. Like Sean, Sean is one of the most gifted people that I know, yet he'll never take any credit for it. Like he'll make a tool to do something so he doesn't have to go buy one.
Well, look at the days back in the Slant Impressions days when we were sitting in someone's driveway. Sean was the go-to guy to, we were doing these foam and cardboard, templates and designs and door panels, and Sean was the one
Mm-hmm.
that was doing that. He was just kind of, did his own thing and figured it out. And we're like, oh, that's how you do that. I would have thought that.
Yeah, like he never, you know, our friendship has matured over the years into something. Just he's more like my brother than he is
Yeah.
anything else. Like it's always funny because I call him up and I say, "Hey man, I want to go here," and he's like, "What time leaving. You know, I'm like, hey, I got this stupid idea. It's not stupid. Let's try it. You know.
It's always your friends that help you with stupid ideas. Like when I put boat speakers on the motorcycle trailer for the
Yeah.
Tundra,
Yeah.
that was coming back from LST that year. I saw all these side by sides and lifted trucks with all the tower speakers in the bed and on the side by sides. And me and Chris Trines like, hey, we should just throw some on this motorcycle trailer that I've got. And it's like that ain't gonna work. And then we sat there for a minute and was like, wait a minute, pull up Memphis audio site, see if they have all that. And
Yeah.
I remember I messaged the guy at Memphis and he immediately called me and it was like, you're wanting to put speakers on what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, on a motorcycle trailer. So I blame Chris Tryon for a lot of the money I've spent on stupid stuff. But if it wasn't for friends like that push you to try new stuff, you'd never do anything that stood out.
I mean, like this right here. You're pushing to get into a realm you don't you're not a part of. Just trying to expand out. And I can appreciate that. I appreciate a lot of that. I appreciate a lot of that. Like I'm fortunate because sometimes I get to see the stuff that you're working on before anybody else does. You know, that's always a plus too. Another one, same thing. Relationship with John Jackson. John's another one of you know. I mean, between you, Courtney, him, you know, uh, who else? Johnny O. Some of the best photographers out there. And like you get to see some of their stuff before anybody else gets to see it because John will send a picture every now and again of what he's working on.
For me to be lumped into a group like that is crazy to me. Like I see myself from the inside and I'm like, I don't fit in that group. Johnny O's one of my idols and was one of my mentors when I first started doing this. John Jackson kills it. I mean, travels the country. I don't think he ever stays at a house, but it's
No,
like,
he's been here. It's always funny. Like if he's in town, he'll say, "I'm gonna come by and steal some power, steal some water," And like, I think I remember when he shot the brown truck, we come back home and he did all the interior shots in the garage, and Emery comes out with my out of date Canon, and she's out there. She's just kind of jerking turning the lens and everything and trying to snap pictures. And John, he was really patient with her. He was like, no, do it this way, And she was looking up to him,
yeah.
So it's always fun.
But to be lumped in a group like that, like I said, I don't see myself as that, but I get told, people like you and stuff like that will say, I've got 30 years in the scene. I've 20 plus years doing this, doing the editor role and all that. Like, I guess because we grew up and evolved with all this, like becoming friends with these people, like it's not, when we first got into it, the editors and stuff were the upper echelon, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like now
Yeah.
we become friends with them, so it's like they become normal people. So I look at myself as a normal person, and I still remember to this day where I was at the first time. I was walking through a show, had nothing that had any kind of logos, nothing on it, and I heard a guy go, "Hey, that's Brandon that's shooting for Mini Trucking," and I was just like, that day will always sit with me. That okay, someone that I don't know knew who I was from the magazine world, and this was, gosh, probably 15 plus years ago.
Yeah, and it's also pretty cool to be associated with a lot of people like that. Like the people that the people that I know, but our friend circle, a lot of people don't realize that there's so many people that we know that are super talented in everything that they do, and really realistically make this whole scene go.
Yep.
A
lot of times if I'll talk to someone and be like, oh yeah, Wes Frisbee, like, yeah, I went to school with him and, was in our weddings and stuff. And their first comments usually followed by like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually, that's what I tell my wife every day too. Sorry.
She's definitely very forgiving. I think she's learned to stop even rolling her eyes at this point. She's just like, that's Wes. It
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah, and Emery just says, "That's my daddy."
Well,
So
we're both old at this point, recording late, so it's our bedtime. So if you that are listening to this that are younger, when they say that when you get old, your bedtime gets earlier, yep, it does. Don't let it fool you. So
yeah, as a matter of fact, I think about 15 minutes ago, I got my bedtime reminder come up on my phone.
but get us up early to roll to a show and we're good to go. So
Yeah, this weekend's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since we've been able to pack a bunch of people in. I think the last one was a couple of years ago when we rented a house and we did an Airbnb for about a family. We had a bunch of people in that house too, so
I remember
it'll
seeing
be
the
fun.
picture of that.
Yeah.
So the people listening, how do they find you online if they want to see some of the stuff that you're playing with and doing and the family stuff? How do they find you?
So I mean, it's just we're on Facebook, of course. Wes Frisbee, I'm easy to find there, and then on Instagram it's Camber NC. You know, it's I always tell everybody I'm NC squared because I'm negative Camber, North Carolina, so pretty easy to find us. But we're always, we try to get everywhere. You know, we you never know where me and Sean's going to pop up. So if you're out and about at LST, which this will come out after, but we'll get mini nights. That's another big one coming up. Jason Bell does a great job.
Yep.
Um, taking on the legacy. So that'll be another fun one. And then who knows where we'll go from there.
And if you follow Wes online, don't be surprised if you see him on the sidelines at a football game with pom poms in his hands, cheering with his daughter and her team.
It's I mean, from one cheer dad to another.
I did it for 20 years, so
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
exactly how that goes. I've
yeah,
probably forgot more cheers than most cheerleaders even know. So you're in the same boat.
yeah, yeah. It's a fun time to be in. It's a fun part of life. Still being able to see it, see her grow and see her turn into a young lady. Makes me realize I'm doing something right.
And what grade is she in now?
She's in 6th grade, so
Blink and she'll be out of college. Trust me. I my phone rings now. If it's my daughter, I think she's 11. And then I
yeah,
hear the language come out of her mouth. I'm like, nope, she's not 11.
yeah. I mean, it's funny because it's like I used to babysit her. I held her in one arm.
Yep.
So
Good thing she has her mom's looks and not yours. So
likewise, you know, likewise. I mean, Emery looks like her mama, but acts just like me. So
yep.
uh, she's got a boyfriend now, and for sure for that little boy.
So do we need to have a group night to hang out at the Frisbee house when her boyfriend comes over so we can scare him? Like, what are we doing?
Oh, I mean, the first date. The first date, it'll be the full blown everybody in the garage doing the 50 Cent movie. Just walking around. Yeah. So but she's fortunate. She's got a lot of guys looking out for her. A lot of people looking out for her. So
Well, you've heard the
we're doing.
story of mine where when she was in college, some of her friends went down to Florida to Sarasota for some like weekend or whatever. And she was at some like Wild Wings type bar restaurant. And some guy walks up to her and is like, "Hey, you look familiar." And she's like, "Yeah, whatever. That's a dumb pickup line." He's like, "No, your dad's got cranberry, don't he?" And she's like, "That's it. I'm leaving." She's like, "Here I am,
Yeah.
10 hours from home." And some guy recognizes me from Instagram because of my dad. And I'm like, "Yep, dad knows everything."
Yep. They can't ever get away from us.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah, man. It was fun.
we'll have a good time here at LST. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it.
all right.
Thanks.